By this point, you know what you want, you've identified where you need to grow, and adopted principles that produce the mindset to stabilize and propel you forward when things get tough. Those are all necessary prerequisites in the process of change. But now we get to the most important. True change only occurs through doing. Many of us have said we've wanted things to be different, but as we've experienced, words don't change a thing. Actions do. It's now time to define the actions that it takes to grow. John Maxwell once said, the greatest gap in the world is the gap between what we know and what we do. Many times we don't do the things we know we should do because of our feelings and our circumstances. That's why we adopt principles. But the other reason is many times we don't stop and think about the intentional actions that it's going to take to become the person we want to be. And that's what we address in step 4. Getting intentional about the actions that'll produce the change that we want and enable us to realize that satisfying, fulfilling season of life we desperately need. So the first exercise gives you a simple way to think about making good choices. It's called casting the vote. This concept comes from James Clear's best-selling book, Atomic Habits. The idea is you actually elect the person that you want to become. You're involved in a personal election. Every day, every choice, every decision you make. It's either a vote for the person you've been or the person you want to be. And just like a real election, the winner doesn't have to be unanimous, but the winner does get the most votes. To grow in your corners and realize your box top, you need to cast more votes for the person you want to be than the person you've been. Step 4 helps you decide what the right votes are so you can start to cast them over the next 8 weeks and beyond. A second exercise to help you is what I call how to fail. Now I realize that doesn't sound too inspiring, but let me explain. For whatever reason, it comes more easily for us to think about what won't work than what will work. Sometimes we think of all the problems instead of the solutions. We're going to use that to our advantage in this exercise. For example, let's say my box top is a healthy, energetic man. That's what I want to realize. And one of my corners is discipline. Well, in this exercise, how to fail, I want to think about how could I be undisciplined and not be a healthy, energetic man. In other words, how to fail. One action I could take is to eat as late as I wanted. Another way to fail would be order a cheeseburger and fries every time I went to a fast food place. You get the picture? So now, to turn this around and help us cast the votes for the person that we want to be, all we need to do is look at those bad failing choices, then do the opposite. In the final exercise called Middle Pieces Worksheet, we're going to define the productive actions and habits that are going to help us grow. Some of the opposites in the how to fail exercise may become some of your actions. So now to that final exercise in step 4 called the Middle Pieces Worksheet. For each corner, you're going to think of 4 actions. These are actions you know will help you grow in that particular area. And they'll help you realize your box top. So once finished, you'll have 16 actions to choose from. It's kind of like creating your own action bank. Now, before you panic and think you're going to have to do 16 new things a week, you don't. You're going to just pick 3 a week to make things manageable and doable. Now, one last instruction and encouragement as you define your actions. They need a few characteristics to be effective. First, the action needs to be proactive. That means it's not something that waits for someone else or something else to happen. You initiate it. Now, let me give you some examples. An action may be go for a walk whenever my wife asks me. A walk is a good thing, but this action is reactive. It's waiting for someone else in order to do it, in this case, my wife. A better action would be ask my wife to go on a walk on a warm day. See how I initiate this action versus waiting on someone else? So make your actions proactive. Now, the second characteristic, your actions need to be measurable. In our example, asking my wife is proactive, but it's not really measurable. To make our actions better and make it measurable, a better version of this action would be go on a walk every warm day. If my wife wants to go, great. If not, I'm going to stay disciplined and walk every warm day. So adding every warm day makes it measurable. The third characteristic, your actions need to be within your control. The issue with the latest version of our action is the weather isn't in our control. If you only walk when it's warm, you may not walk that week. To take control of that action and make it a proactive, measurable, and controllable action, we could say this: take a 30-minute walk every day this week, regardless of the weather. By taking the weather out of the equation, we take back control. So there's you an example of what we're talking about. Another cool thing this step does is a practice I've built into my own life. I call it decide once, execute many. Rather than each week spending an hour trying to think of actions that'll help you grow each week, we're taking the time up front to define a pool of options in advance. So all we have to do going forward is spend 5 minutes each week picking from what we've already decided in advance are good actions. I'm big on think once, execute many. One final suggestion. Your principles are going to be extremely important to this process. Since you've just adopted them last week, they're probably not on the forefront of your mind yet. So I suggest one or more of your actions should be actions that actually help you learn your principles. One example could be writing them down in your journal every morning. Another example could be writing a universal principle on your mirror each week. So think of actions that help you learn your principles. Those actions could be as important as the other physical things that you do. So that's step 4, a super important step in this growth process. Once you complete this step and we talk about it next week, we'll start picking 3 actions each week and chasing growth.